Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Fertility Women. I am joined by the beautiful Zara from IVF Babble. Zara, I've missed you. How long has it been?
It's been too long. And do you know what? I've just figured out how I can make the screen larger because I was just really squinting and now it's really large and I can see you.
Small wins, babe. Small wins.
Oh my God. I have so missed talking to you. I really, really have. But I've caught up on the episodes that I missed and they've been fascinating.
Oh my God, how amazing was Mon last week? Like, I cried for the majority of the episode, I won't lie.
She is an incredible.
She's lush, isn't she? Some was like hysterical laughter and some was like super emotional tears. And I don't know, I couldn't find the balance in the end. I was just sobbing.
Well, that basically sums up the roller coaster ride of fertility, doesn't it? You know, the massive highs and the massive lows, and mix them all up, and that's what you know, fertility treatment and the path to parenthood is like, isn't it?
So where have you been? What have you been up to?
Well, I've where have I been? Because obviously I've got my telly job that I have to go off and do.
So I went job.
Yeah, so I went off to Rhodes and was out there, but still, whilst I was out there, I was still keeping in touch with everyone, and you know, it doesn't stop because you know people's journeys are still going, and I can't lose touch with all these incredible people that just are craving support and you know and just the conversation, which is what we're doing, which is why I'm really, really excited to talk to our guest today that you've organized.
Oh my God, I'm literally so excited to talk to her. We connected a little while ago on Instagram. I love a bit of Instagram. Anyone who knows me or follows me knows that Instagram is my home, and it was one of those late night scrolls, and I was looking through some like commonly used hashtags and stuff that I use, and she had this post, and Paige is an embryologist, and it was all about the love she has for the M babies and that they're really safe when they're with her while we're missing them, and that she understands. And it was just the most moving post ever. And I just, you know, I just jumped in her inbox, like, I just need to tell you how wonderful I think you are, because from an M baby mum, like, to hear that somebody genuinely cares and it's more than just a job, I don't know, it was so heartwarming. It was really lovely. And now I am so excited because we've managed to snap her up for her first ever. She's never done anything like this before. She's going to come on and she's going to talk to us all about her journey and her job. So I'm excited for everyone that's going to tune in tonight and be able to ask questions live. And if you can't watch and you're watching on replay, then hopefully we'll have done you guys justice and asked everything that you want us to. So I think should we just get her on?
Yes, because I have hundreds of questions.
I know you are. I'm just going to sit here like, right, let's see. Hello, Paige.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. Good. How are y'all?
Yeah, good. I love your accent. I want to be American. Y'all, I want to be American.
It's just that one word, nothing else.
Oh, it's not. It's just, don't you think, I know this is off topic, but like that our accent's just very mundane in comparison to yours?
No, it's very fancy or unique. It's very pretty to us. Ours is very harsh and like simple. Yours is just eloquent.
Oh, love that. So I'm so happy to are you feeling all right? You're a bit anxious, a bit nervous?
Yeah, just curious what kind of questions everyone would have.
Well, can I just start, Jade, by just bowing down to how like seriously, we are not worthy because you know you create lives. I mean, you know, you and the team that you work with create lives. So in my eyes, it doesn't get better than that.
Oh, good. I feel like I do a very small part, and the women do the majority of the insanely hard, difficult part up until and then after we transfer as well. So my little part is very fulfilling for me, but I'm glad I'm able to be a part of a lot of people's journeys to become mommies.
Oh, I have a question. Can I go? Can I ask a question? It's not a tricky one. I don't think. Well, actually, no, I don't think it is. How did you get into what made you, I wouldn't have even known about an embryologist if I hadn't have had to have fertility treatment. So where did that come about?
I didn't really know about this profession either, to be honest with you. I went to school, actually my whole life, I grew up wanting to be a veterinarian. I loved animals. I wanted to care for them and take care of them. I worked in a vet clinic for 10 plus years, right whenever I was able to start working. Went to school for animal science. That was my undergrad. And then my senior year, I took just a reproduction course and needed to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, if I wanted to do large animal veterinarian or small or exotic. So I took an internship, just a completely free, wasn't paying me, just going to work for free internship at this farm at school. And we just worked with the cattle and the horses and everything. And they said, there's a research project coming up that they're allowing undergrad students to participate in. Would you like to do a project? I was like, of course. So the professor that was above me said, I would like you to do vitrification of immature and mature bovine oocytes. So that's just freezing, fast freezing, mature and immature. I think everyone knows what that is. Eggs of cows. And so I was like, okay. So I did it for a few months and I ended up winning the international competition. Strangely enough, that I only did it for like 2 months, 3 months. And so then they offered me an assistantship to do my master's degree there. And so I got more into in vitro fertilization and vitrification and freezing and thawing and all of that. And I really just kept walking through every door that was open. I didn't stop at the doors. It opened, I walked through, every opportunity. I just kept going and rolled with it. And here I am today. So yeah, it's greatest decisions of my life.
Right? Did I get that wrong? It started with cattle.
Yes.
So funny because of your cattle stories just makes me absolutely howl. How did we go from cattle to humans? I didn't even know cattle had IVF.
Yeah, so that's what we do our research on for humans. So and then yeah, well, and you have to think that they want the best of the best, right? So you want a cow that's, if it's a beef cattle, you want it to be meaty with decent marbling, no fat. They have to pick certain traits. And so they do artificial insemination, more or less like an IUI for cows. And that's what we did in school. Wow. And of course, horses, with race horses, they, of course, pick the best.
Yes, yes they do.
Mm-hmm. So.
What was it like then when you transitioned from cows to actual humans? Do you remember your first day in the lab when you were actually in front of and responsible for human life?
I do actually. So a lot of it's very similar, at least in the lab side of it. The eggs are the same with the cumulative cell mass around them. They look the same.
The
process is exactly the same. Everything's very similar. The only difference is, and I know my physician that I work with is going to be laughing. I always say to him, well, if you were doing a cow, you'd be able to just grab that ovary and pull it towards you. But females, you can't do that because you can't go on their butt like you do with a cow. So yeah, that's kind of
a bit more trauma to that IVF process and stick your hand up someone's ass.
Sorry, all the way up to the shoulder too, So
how much training is there in a lab before you actually are allowed to work on a human embryo?
Yeah, so I believe I trained for about a year and a half up until I was able to actually do procedures on humans. But it was small things, like in any job, you're allowed to do this one little portion of it. If you succeeded and you did well, you can move to the next. So it probably took about a year and a half until I was completely trained and allowed to kind of just go on my own without him hovering over me, watching everything I'm doing. So. And I guess it's different from everybody depending on how well they're doing it. So,
because I've been in an IVF lab, and the embryologist allowed me to. She said, "Look, this is what we're working with," and I had to look through the not the magnifying glass. What am I talking about?
Microscope.
Microscope. Magnifying glass. And try and pick up a little air bubble with the pipette thing. It's flipping hard.
Yeah.
And that was with an air bubble, and you're dealing with, human life here.
Yeah. So we did that in school too, though. So I didn't have to really train too much on that. But yeah, they're very, very small. Everything we deal with is microscopic.
Yeah. And so that first embryo, how can you remember that? The first embryo that you...
My first transfer I did, because we did hundreds of practice, right? So I had some that weren't viable anymore, or just like eggs that were immature that we couldn't use that we practiced on. And I did the whole process of picking it up, walking it into the room with nobody in there, pretending I was doing it. And that first one I did, I mean, I was shaking, and I looked at my lab director and I was like, I'm shaking too much. And he's like, just stop. He's like, there's no rush. He's like, stop, take 3 deep breaths and calm yourself. It's fine. You're going to do great. And I did. I ended up doing it. Everything was fine. But like, you kind of get in your head, especially when someone goes through so much to get to this one point and it's literally in your hands. You don't want to mess up. You don't want to trip. And I mean, that's a human thing. You can just trip and everything's over, So,
and that's literally the last thing you're thinking about, being that person sat waiting for this transfer as the embryologist to fall over. That's the last thing we're thinking about. Is like, is she going to trip? Next time I have a transfer, I'm legit going to think of you, go, Paige. Like, are they going to trip? Are they going to trip with my embryo?
Well, it's funny.
So
I used to be a server.
Oh, sorry. Go on. You go. I'll ask in a minute.
Okay. I used to be a server when I was in high school. So at a restaurant, a server. Yeah. And you have dreams when you're a server that your whole section is filled with people and everyone sits at once and everybody wants 3 drinks each and you're running around and you always have this dream for some reason. And it's so funny because that's the only job I've ever had, like a nightmare. And now you have dreams of you're holding the dish and all of a sudden you trip and you're like, well, there goes everything. But thankfully, we're very, very slow and we watch ourselves and we hold it in a certain way. And so everything is very smooth. But
how do you hold it? How do you hold it?
Let me see if I can grab. Oh, well,
do you know what I mean? These are the details.
Embryos for us.
Yeah.
No, I have my makeup. But this is the size of it.
Details we want to hear.
Well, I don't want to give horror stories. So this is like the size of it.
I can really see you.
Oh, I don't want to do like an ad thing, but here's like the size of a dish.
Yeah. And
so when I hold it, you hold it kind of like this, and both my fingers are around it. My middle finger or my ring finger is kind of underneath it, kind of holding underneath, and you just walk like this. And you put it down.
Someone's baby in it.
Yeah. Or multiple babies in there because they're all together whenever they're developing and growing.
And that first time that you hand over the embryo in that manner with your fingers perfectly positioned and that embryo then implanted, do you remember that first patient? Do you remember that first feeling when you delivered and that woman then told you that she was pregnant?
Yes. Yeah. And she actually did get pregnant. It wasn't a negative. It was a positive. So it was very exciting to know that I helped that little part. And I didn't mess up. So I was like, yay.
Like Layla had a picture with them when she was a few months old. When she was born, I took her into the fertility clinic. Still got a picture. And our embryologist did music as well, which was really cool. He was like, what music do you like? I was like, I don't know. Ian was like, Michael Bublé. I was like, what?
I used to play music. I used to play music, and I had one patient turn to me and goes, what is this playing? And I was like, oh, I don't know. It's on a shuffle. And he goes, well, can you turn it off? I was like, yes, yes, we can. And I haven't played music since, so maybe I should start doing it again.
He asked, he said, would you like the music on to help you relax? And I was like, relax? Is that what I'm meant to be doing right now? Because I'm freaking out. Like, is that what I'm meant to be doing right now? And he did leave Michael Bublé. Out of all the songs, I remember Mrs. Jones come on, and I thought, What? Like, out of all the good Michael Bublé songs, I was kind of judging him right then. But and I am sure it was down to him. Like, he was the not that the first guy wasn't good, but he was just different and he was amazing. But I feel like I've gone away from what I wanted to ask you, and we've moved on a bit.
I've got, and then when we're not on this, I've got a great Michael Bublé story for you. Don't forget.
Oh, I love it, Michael Bublé. Right, so you said you were practicing like walking in an empty room and stuff with this little dish of embryos. What were you practicing on putting them back into? Not while your college, was it?
No. So when we do the transfer, so when we're doing a transfer, if they're not in the dish anymore, so we put them into a catheter. So it's like a al dente spaghetti noodle. So no, I was just walking in and just pretending that there was someone there just to reenact it. So no one was there.
You didn't ever practice putting a catheter in and all of that?
Oh, I did, but not like on a person. I never practiced on a person, no.
Because you're handing over to you at that point. You're handing over to the consultant who then puts it in, right?
So no, in our lab, he has the outer sheath of the catheter already into her cervix. And so I put it into the hole and then he just.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right. That makes sense. So Paige, tell us about your journey.
And through fertility? So I don't know. So I haven't gotten my partner's permission to tell our fertility story. I didn't know we would want to talk about that. So maybe if we do an interview again, I can ask permission beforehand, if that's okay. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize at all. That's absolutely fine. Like, I totally get that. My other half, I'm glad he's outside now doing some work on the extension, because he'd be like, why don't you ever ask my permission before you go and tell him stories about me? Because I always do it. And he's quite often the punchline of my jokes as well. So I'm grateful that you didn't hear that. So yeah, like, well, because go on, Zara, go on.
I was just going to say, because I'm really curious to know how. Obviously, I keep talking about how you are, I keep putting this huge pressure on you now, saying, you are responsible for human life because, for us, going through IVF treatment, the embryologist is the key.
In case you've not felt that pressure before, Paige, you will now feel it, okay?
Okay, it's always there.
But for me, it's the equivalent of like a surgeon. How do you manage your own life when your work life, there is so much responsibility in your day-to-day work life, because I've been at work on numerous occasions with epic hangovers, but working in TV, all I have to do is kind of take a deep breath, straighten my back and cue some acts onto stage. Whereas, you're doing intricate, focused, massive epic things. So how do you have to like go to bed early every night? How do you manage your own life?
I don't think I have a very good answer or direct answer to that question. I did just have a child last year, so I've been going to bed super early. I go to bed quite early, I guess, compared to most. I mean, 9:30ish. I wake up at 5 every morning. Kind of just get into the zone. I don't know. I don't have a very good answer. I just do it, I guess. I don't drink too much the night before, but on Friday and Saturday it's game on if I don't have to work. But other than that, oh yes, it's only 3:20 my time, so I can't have a cocktail yet.
And then when you're in the lab, is it almost like a case of mindfulness? Can you switch off from thoughts that are coming in so that you are then focused on what's in front of you? Because again, that's something I struggle with. I have a mind that just tends to drift and wander no matter what I'm doing, especially if something's in my mind. So how do you, when you're trying to get that, tiny little embryo into a catheter, is that the word? Mm-hmm. Yeah. If something's bugged you or if somebody's annoyed you that day, how do you keep that out of your mind and focused on this?
I don't know exactly how, but you have to. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, and I've caught myself drift off before and been like, you have to focus 24/7, or you do mess up, and small messes up in the lab are big.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one bad wrong movement of my hand, you could lose eggs, you could lose embryos, you can mess them up. So you kind of just zone in and focus on exactly what you're doing. I do put music on when I'm like doing ICSI or biopsies or things like that, but sometimes we don't, just so if we have a lot to do, you have to put it all down in your head and kind of focus on each step you're doing and what's going to happen next and what you have to do now.
About ICSI. I want to talk about that. So do you get the sperms? Like, do you pick the winning sperm and you do all that? You do that? Oh my God, is that really exciting?
Yeah, so it depends. There's different levels of how you get the sperm. So like a normal ejaculated sperm sample, we put into some media that helps slow them down because they're super fast. And you just find which one you like the best. You make sure it looks good, the head, the mid piece, the tail, it's swimming fine, it's not tapered. And it's funny because sometimes the sperm can look good, right? And so what I found that I do is I don't pick the first sperm swimming up. I kind of look in the middle, because in my head, I'm like, well, if that sperm is first, then he would have fertilized the egg naturally. So maybe I won't go with him or her. I'll go with the fourth or fifth one that's like swimming below it. I don't know. It's a weird thing that I have in my head. But yeah, we get to pick each sperm that we inject into each egg.
And there's no one to double verify that? Because it's kind of mad to think that, like, you have to sit there. How long do you sit and look at the sperm for? Am I asking really crazy questions?
I love these questions.
No. So there's different levels. So if it's like a fresh ejaculated easy sample, it doesn't take long because there's millions and millions. So you just want to find nice looking sperm that you think will result in a fertilization. So you just pick it immediately. It could take anywhere for a minute or even less to find one sperm, right? But then when you start thinking about testicular tissue and FNAs and the extraction and aspiration of sperm, that's when it gets a little rougher and longer to find sperm.
What does that mean?
So guys who are having a hard time producing and they have to go through the testes to remove testicular tissue.
Yeah.
From that's whenever it gets tricky, because then you have to, I actually just did a post on, you have to express the tubules and then you spin it down to get the most motile sperm out of it. And you kind of search through the dish to find any that are moving, if they are moving, and you prefer them to be moving because that's the only way you know they're actually alive. But then you want morphologically good looking sperm as well. So you want that head to look normal because that's where all the DNA is. That's where all the good stuff is. The mid piece where the mitochondria is that we don't use because us females, we use our mitochondria. And then the tail, it shows that it's moving. So we want to make sure that it's alive when we inject it. So that takes a little longer to find some for.
And you pick up one sperm with the pipette?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the assisted needle. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it? How many attempts does it take you to grab a sperm?
One.
Sorry. Oh my God. I feel like we need a day outside. We need to go to a lab that are going to let us come and try and pick up some sperm.
Well,
it's hard.
Like I said, I tried
a hen party game after a couple of drinks.
It's really, really hard. Like I said, the embryologist let me practice just with I think they were like water bubbles or something in a dish. And it's so hard. It's so hard to even put your eye up against it to actually look down and see what's in the dish. It's really, really hard. So I'm just in awe of your skill. It's just phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah. I remember in school when we used to mess around in the dishes with eggs and everything, the professor I was working under, he'd be like, okay, well, you need to move the eggs around and make your initials. And that's whenever you know you're skilled. Like you can move them and write your name or your initials, then you're good. And it took me a whole day to do a P. I was like, oh my gosh. So
do you have any sorry, these are my little IVF babies that are running in and out of the
I
kitchen.
love it.
Big babies, they're 10 years old now. They should be in bed, and they knew I was doing this and they're being naughty. Do you have any like little sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, I've spoken to an embryologist before, and she said they have these little kind of things that they do. Like she puts little secret messages on the bottom of the dishes, like little good luck messages and things like that. Do you have any quirky things that you guys do in the lab?
That's super cute. But no, I don't think so. I think the only quirky thing I do is I sing to him when I do ICSI. But well, it's just because I'm singing. Just the music that I have on Spotify. So we always make a joke when people come in with their IVF babies, that I'm always like, "Do you know my voice?" And they always are smiling when they see me. So I'm like, they must know my voice.
So much. And you know what? Like it took me quite a while to finally get pregnant with ICSI, and when I first had my first failed round of IVF, I didn't even understand the role of an embryologist until the embryologist phoned me to tell me that not one egg had fertilized, which is really sad because I didn't understand what was happening or the fact that it took so many people to make it happen, with the nurses. It's not many, isn't there? So, yeah, you think it's just a doctor, that's all you focus on, but actually it's not. It's an incredible team of brilliant people who are all working together to make this dream happen. And which is why I find it so exciting talking to you, so that people can listen and understand what happens, what happens in that lab.
Yes,
like I said,
yeah, 100%. I'm with you. I'm bowing down too. We've had Tara's asked, do the sperm actually look like tadpoles?
Yeah. They do. There's the little kind of teardrop head and then a wiggly tail. They kind of look just like tadpoles if you just drew it on a piece of paper.
It's the only other time I thought I'd feel really passionately and sweetly about sperm, I'm not going to lie. But I would love to know more about, obviously, do you go in when, say I was coming in for an egg collection, an egg retrieval, you would be there?
Yeah, so not all embryologists talk to their patients, but our lab or our facility is
in the room over here, though, isn't there? Loads. Like I remember counting on my first retrieval, there was 17 people in the room. 17.
Oh my goodness!
I know,
we're a smaller clinic. We only have 4 people in the room, so we have the anesthesia. That's a lot of people. So there's just the embryologist, the nurse, the physician, and then the anesthesiologist, and that's it for us.
Yeah. During my egg retrieval, right? I had. Do they give you pethidine? Do they give you pethidine, don't they, or something to make you quite drowsy for egg retrieval?
Maybe I don't do all those drugs. Good stuff.
Whatever it is. Afterwards, I spoke to my doctor.
I had in labour.
Oh, well, they gave me something, just so that it wouldn't. I was sort of drowsy, and then afterwards, my doctor said to me, "Well, that was interesting," and I said, "Why?" And he goes, "You spoke quite a lot about Gordon Ramsay during your egg collection." Yeah, because beforehand he said to me, he goes, "Stand by." He goes, "I find a lot of patients speak the truth during egg collection." Oh, and then yes, and I said, "What did I say about Gordon?" Yeah. Well, I work with him. I used to work with him quite a lot, so God knows what I said. He wouldn't tell me. He said no. He goes, "What happens in theatre?" Yeah.
I remember telling the lady, no, I don't remember actually, that's a lie, that was another off I had, but when I came round from that egg collection, the lady said I told her that I loved her.
You're very loving afterwards. People are very loving.
Oh my goodness me.
But so what do you do during an egg collection? I'm there, I'll be your patient, and you put me to sleep. Well, you don't, the anaesthetist puts me to sleep. And then what do you do?
I just kind of sit there and wait for the tube. So the physician goes ahead and aspirates each follicle that has an egg in them. And then he passes off the tube. The nurse passes off the tube to me, and I bring it into the lab, and I pour it into a bigger dish under the microscope, and I search for the cumulus with the eggs inside of them.
What are they
I put them
in?
into
So
my
when
own
you
little
put them in
dishes.
the dish,
I'm sorry?
when you said you poured them from the tube into a dish, and then you search for something that has got the eggs in them. What is that?
It's a big cumulus cell mass. So when they're aspirated out of the follicles, there's all these cells around it that holds the egg inside of them. It actually helps with communication for maturation. And so they're in this big mass. And so you can see them under the microscope, and then you pick them up, and then I put them in a separate dish. I clean them off, wash them off, and then put them in a dish to kind of hang out until we're done with the retrieval.
You literally do the baby's first ever bath then, don't you?
Yeah, you can say that, yeah.
Oh my God, I love you. I've got serious job envy of what you do right now. It's super special.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm just having a look. Sorry, if I keep looking to the side, not being ignorant, it's because we've got like a comments thread on the side. So I'm just having a little nosy through to see what people are saying. Tara said that she really hopes someone sung to her and babies. And I hope someone sung to mine as well. I'm going to send them to Kentucky next time.
I can't be the best voice, but I will sing.
This is
go on.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I was never warned of was like the reality of IVF not working, which I know is a really depressing thing to bring up, but actually I think it's something that I wish I'd been told, because I was not prepared for that phone call that I had with my embryologist. Like, just wasn't prepared. I couldn't actually. In fact, when he spoke and told me that none of them had fertilized, my response was, "Okay, thanks so much, bye," and I hung up.
Mm-hmm. You're in shock.
I remember my sister going, "What was that?" And I went, "He said it didn't work." And so I in a way, I wish I'd had a bit of a heads up. Mm-hmm. So, if like in terms of success rates, are you seeing more success than you are non-success?
So I feel like we're more successful than not successful. It definitely depends on the patient, what they're using, their age, their sperm source, things like that definitely have a huge impact. I feel like more times than none, we are successful, but I do go into it for those patients that are on the edge, that it's very possible that they may not be successful. I know our physician kind of improps them, gets them ready for that. And I as well kind of go over it whenever I talk to them bedside before the retrieval, knowing, all right, this is how many eggs we have. This is the sperm. We're going to try our best to find the best looking sperm so they can fertilize, things like that. I've had a patient, I've made a few patients cry, and my nurse always yells at me. She's like, "Why do you make all of my patients cry?" And I'm a very blunt person, and so I try to give them all the information, but I had one patient call me afterwards and say, "I just want to thank you because you got me ready for the bad news that I did unfortunately have to give to her the next day, but she was so hopeful and full of excitement, and this is going to for sure work, and I had to bring her down just a little bit, and it's the worst thing in the world to have to do, but in the long run, it does help moms because you're not putting all of your heart into this one time." So it's a weird juggle because you want to be completely hopeful and optimistic, and yes, we're going to get you your baby, but then you have to also bring it back down to reality and say, this is the real scenario that we're looking at, and it may not work. So
yeah, sorry, that made me feel a bit emotional actually, because when I had my retrieval in February, because I just had a cycle in February, and it's funny because the first ever round of IVF didn't work. I had 4 embryos, 2 put back the first time and 2 frozen, and I was so sure that was going to work. And so when you say like it's important for people to know that it doesn't always work, I think I agree there. But then the whole hospital thing, like when in February when I had my egg retrieval, my consultant came round and I don't know, it was the way she said it. I'm not sure. And she just made a comment about how many follicles and stuff that I'd had, and just it didn't sound very positive. And at that moment I felt so hormonal. It just wasn't what I needed in that moment. And I remember ringing Ian crying because of COVID. He wasn't allowed in, and I was just like, it's just made it sound like it's not going to work, blah blah blah. And I don't need that to get me through the next couple of days. So I think it depends, I guess, who it is. I don't know, and how, I don't know. I just guess it depends who it is and how they're feeling and stuff in their cycle. And I guess it probably comes across with the delivery, and I can't even imagine you not being anything but like happy and smiley, because you're so happy and smiley. Like, I don't know. I guess I think it was probably the way that she executed what she had to say. And as it turns out, we ended up having like 7 frozen embryos, which is bloody amazing. It's way better than what we got 5 years ago. She was just a bit cold.
No, I think everything comes down to the way, words are delivered and words that are used. And in fact, we've spoken, well, it was last year. I had 4 frozen embryos in the freezer that came to the end of their shelf life, and the word discard was used.
They came to their end of their shelf life.
Yeah. So in the UK, embryos have a shelf life of 10 years.
Oh.
Yeah,
we do not have that here.
And what is so tragic is that I think that they're lobbying, or they may have lobbied for it to be extended, but sadly I didn't fall into that. So February last year, mine reached the 10-year shelf life. So I had a call from the embryologist who said, we will be discarding your embryos. The word discard is used. And so I tried to, I got in contact with loads of clinics, around the world. And I said, can we stop using the word discard? Because these embryos are more to me than just little cells. These are mine. And I don't want to hear that they're being discarded.
That's good to know, because I use the word discard. That's our word we use. Yeah. So it's good to hear from moms that, because you don't know, as a lab, you don't know that you feel that way. So, I mean, I will for sure not use that word discard anymore now that I know that some moms feel that way. Because
the problem is and what I was told is that and I was told, choose a different word, and if it's right, we will use it. Right. So we were coming up, and I asked everyone, come up, help me choose a different word. But you have to choose a word that says exactly what it is that they're going to do with it. Because if there's any kind of ambiguity, it's like, well, did they read? What did you do with it? So, there's that real kind of trying to be.
Yeah, because dispose is even better,
No, it's not, because they're my baby. No one's going to dispose of my baby. And I know, I get it. When we talked about this before, so I get it, because you have to do what it says you're going to do. And it's tied in with so much stuff in infertility, like geriatric mums and stuff. Like, what is that? Like,
don't call me that.
But I get it. I get it. Like, I understand. I think it's just in the moment. And maybe if you have to say that, I would say, like, I'm so sorry that we have to use that word. This is the reason we have to use it, because we're just, those mums at that moment, or wannabe mums, are just drugged up to the eyeballs wanting a baby, and or have had their baby. I don't know. I still, the thought, because it's so funny. I thought it was a maternal thing, but Ian always says, I'm not leaving any of those embryos in the freezer. 7, hun. I've already got 1. Like 7. Imagine if they all stick. Imagine if they all split. We're gonna need an even bigger extension, aren't we? But yeah, no, it's a hard. That whole area, like wording and the way to say stuff, I guess, is really hard. But what I would love to ask, if you don't mind, is what's the hardest part of your job? What's the hardest bit of what you do?
Calling my patients when I don't get an embryo from day 5 or day 6. I hate those phone calls. When I was when I was still in training, quote unquote, I would always call all the patients between me and my lab director. And when it was bad results, I'd be like, okay, here you go. You can call that one. And it got to a point that he was like, hey, you've been here long enough. You have to call them now. You have to call them for everything. And it is literally the worst, because it could go one of two ways. Like you said, okay, thanks, bye. And then they call back in an hour and they're like, so I feel like you just told me some bad news and I didn't ask enough questions. And then you have to kind of go over everything. Or it's just somebody on the other line bawling their eyes out because they've done this 2 or 3 times. This is their last round and we didn't end up giving them a baby, you know? So it's just like, it gets to you, you know, it's so unbelievably difficult to do that phone call.
God, I can feel that anxiety though. I can feel it. Oh my God, it's just the worst. Like that day. Do you know what? I'm gonna go out on a whim, and anyone watching, tell me what you think. I'm gonna go out on a whim and say it's worse than test day at the end of the 2-week wait. And hear me out, and I'll tell you why I think it's worse than test day. Because, like you say, if you've got no embryos, there's nothing for a 2-week wait for, and this is like the peak of everything that you've gone through. And at the end of the 2-week wait, for me, for my first cycle, when I was like day 11, around day 11, I'd started bleeding. So I knew within my heart of hearts that it hadn't worked. So the second time, when I got to day 2 weeks, all right, I was overwhelmed that day and I did take a test at home in the morning. But when you've kind of done the 2 weeks, you think, well, I would be having a period by now. So you're a little bit more, but that, oh my God, you are so powerless, because all I've done is been put to sleep, had my embryos taken, and that's it, my eggs taken, and that's it. Like, there's nothing I can do. Like, I've got 2 weeks to rest, to eat McDonald's chips and to put my feet up and to meditate and to do colouring and just to relax. You feel like you've got a teeny tiny little bit more control than what you have over making those babies. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's just for me personally. I find that call, that bit that is the hardest part for you is the hardest part for me as well.
I hate that.
And you have to do it all the time though. You have to do it all the time. That must be
hard. Not all the time, thank goodness, but yeah.
But after you've done that and you've had that phone call, what do you do after? Because your post to me is like you're like a stepmommy to those babies until I have them back. Mm-hmm. Like that post you wrote was just literally, honestly, I don't think I'll ever forget it. It was the most amazing post. I'm going to share it again later on.
I haven't seen that post, so I'm going to look at that as soon as we finish.
You will see it and you will know what post it is. It's just beautiful. But what do you do after that? Like do you just do you just because you do it and it's part and parcel job, you snap out of it, or does it really get you?
Oh no, it gets to you. Yeah. I mean, you have to take a couple of minutes afterwards just to kind of get back into the mindset of working and going along with your day. But no, it does. I mean, you tear up, you cry with the patients, you know, I mean, it's hard. I try not to, so professionally, but I mean, there are plenty of tears that happen on this side. But yeah, you kind of just take a couple of deep breaths and keep going.
How many embryos are you currently nurturing in your lab at the moment?
How many embryos? I know how many patients, but embryos.
Patients, go patients.
Oh, okay. It's like embryos, there's a lot.
Then patients then on.
I think 9 or 10 right now.
Okay, so how many embryos?
Probably 50 to 60. Yeah.
And you don't have to do anything once you're frozen. Do you have to do anything to them every day when you get there? Like, obviously you have to wake up and give them breakfast. Is there anything in particular that you have to do?
Yes, we have to do quality control on everything. So we have to test everything to make everything's working. So we check our liquid nitrogen in all our tanks, make sure it doesn't drop dramatically past it was the day before. If it is, then there's something wrong with the tank. We need to make sure it's fine and go on, because we have monitors that monitor things, but we need to double check those machines. So we go around and take temperatures on all of the on all the surfaces that are warmed. We do pHs, CO2, check the levels, check all of the gas tanks, make sure they're functioning well, and just kind of do a sweep with all the labs. And then we check on the
And
embryos.
What if something was wrong? Something was like the temperature or something wasn't right. And there was
So
something
temperature
actually
is
wrong,
easy.
like,
We would adjust the temperature. We would increase it and check it in 30 minutes or so to see, or decrease it, whatever it is. We check it. If there was something wrong with like the tanks, like if it dropped like 3 inches down, because we use like a big measuring stick to see how far it's decreased, then we always have an empty tank that has nothing in it, just full of liquid nitrogen that we would move everybody to and then fix that tank. All the embryos.
This is an emergency. Evacuate. Out we go into the new tank.
And then
we also have everything on a generator back there. So the whole office isn't on the generator, but just the lab's on a generator. So if anything, like the electricity goes out, there's a storm, we turn on back in the lab.
Can I say, talking of it looks like I've had a blackout, by the way. I look like I'm sitting in the bed. I've just realised.
It is dark.
God, I'm so sorry. How unprofessional. I used to have one of those like proper lamp things that everybody has, but it broke. So I'm literally relying on that. So sorry about the darkness. You can hear me. Fine. I was going to ask, how many are you doing much PGS testing on the embryos?
Yeah, so it was probably about 50%, but I feel like it's increased lately. So we do a decent amount. We do that on day 5 and day 6 embryos.
And is there any like risk? And there must be some risk to the embryos when you do that.
Yeah, of course. We're using a laser underneath a microscope with our hands. So there's always a risk. We take about 4 or 5 cells off of the part that is hatching out. We prefer them to be hatching out. It makes the biopsy easier and smoother. But yeah, there's always a small risk to doing it. Haven't had much issue in our laboratory with success rate and survival rate after thawing from the biopsied embryos. But yeah, there's always risk in anything that we do.
Is that genetic testing, like the sex of the which one?
It's the genetic testing and the sex, so it's both.
To test if that embryo is viable and to test whether or not there's any genetic
malfunction.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And what I was going to say something about genetic testing, then I've completely forgotten.
Sorry, that's my fault.
No.
It's just fascinating, the whole sex testing and stuff like that, because it's not something that I'd ever, because especially before I'd had Layla, I'll be completely honest, I was always like, I'll get what I'm given, I'm totally fine, and I'm still very much like that now. But I know that obviously Ian would absolutely love a boy, and there are days when Layla says, I want a baby brother. That's what she says. So I just wondered, and then I think, oh God, should I not do that? Like, I just don't ever know how I feel about it. And then I just wonder, well, maybe I would just get them tested to see. They might all be all girls. They might all be all boys. Like, I don't know. And it's just always something that I've never really asked about. And I just thought I'd just mention it then. Like,
you can.
Is it common?
You can for us if we go abroad. I'm sure there are some countries that do it.
So when we do
it here.
Oh, you don't?
No, not in the UK.
So when we do the genetic,
you can't. No, in the UK, you can't test to see if you're having a boy or a girl.
Why?
Well, I think I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
It's to be able to pay $6,000 for a round of IVF, but then you can't pay to find out what if you're having a girl or a boy, because a lot of people do. Some people feel very strongly about that, don't they? Like some people really do.
When we do the genetic testing on ours, it will tell us what chromosomes are impacted, if any are impacted, and then it will tell us the gender. So people, even if you don't want to know, if you're like, hey, I don't want to know the gender, we're like, okay, well, it's going to come back and tell us, but we just won't inform you. So it comes back regardless for ours.
Wow.
And then if people are like, I don't want to know, just pick the best one, but I would really like a girl. And I'm like, okay.
I got you, girl. I want you to be my embryologist.
I had one girlfriend, and I call her a girlfriend now because I have so many patients that are like now friends. Like it's I don't know, maybe I'm just the weirdo that makes friends with all my patients. I don't know. But she told me she had, I think, 1 boy and like 3 girls. And she goes, I don't want you just to randomly pick because statistically you'll pick a girl. And she goes, I just want you to put one gender, 1 boy and 1 girl into a hat and just pick it. And so I did, and I picked the boy, and she was just over the moon. And she wanted to know the whole time, but she didn't want to know. So she'd be like, her other friend would be like, so Paige, so-and-so is really excited for her girl. And I'd be like, you're not tricking me into telling you what her baby is. Like, it was always just so fun to mess around.
You must feel like people like the power there. I love that. It's amazing.
It is fun.
I feel like I have more questions that I want to ask you about the whole gender and stuff, because that's what I wanted to ask you. This probably is a really silly question, but when you're looking at two embryos, say if you've got a girl and a boy, can you look? Could you say, I know that's a girl? Could you see a difference to like? No, none.
I wish I could. I wish I was that talented or we had that power. But no, there's no way.
Can I ask a question about embryo thawing? Because I have this awful kind of image, a bit like, you know, when you take a chicken out the freezer and defrost it overnight for your dinner the next day. How do you defrost an embryo? Do you literally just take it out the freezer and leave it on the side overnight?
No, that actually would kill it. That's how we discard our embryos. Actually, we just put it on the counter and they're done. Because if they touch the air for a certain amount of time, they're done. So you have to be very quick in keeping them in the liquid nitrogen as long as possible. And so when we put it in certain media. So there's things called cryoprotectants in certain media, and actually sucrose, sugar. And so when you're freezing it, these cryoprotectants kind of make the embryos small to reduce the surface area and to reduce the amount of ice crystal formation inside of it when it does become frozen. And when we thaw it, we put it in more or less the same thing. It's dimethyl sulfoxide with sucrose, and sucrose has more in the thawing media because sugar helps re-expand it. So it's when we're freezing it, we're taking the water out of the embryo. When we're thawing it, we're putting the water back in so it could expand again to increase and decrease the size. But that's all we do. We kind of have it in a liquid nitrogen tank next to us, or a little dish. And then we remove the straw real fast, put it in the media, and it sits in there. And then it goes through the steps of the thawing media.
And how long does it take?
So our protocol takes about 12 minutes. And then we thaw. Go on. We thaw about 2 hours prior to your transfer, so the embryo can expand significantly and show us. So if it's not really expanding too well and it's kind of looking rough, it most likely isn't viable. So that's a big indicator if it's viable, if it starts to expand. Even if it's just a little bit, it's showing us, hey, I'm okay. I survived the thaw. Let's go.
My God.
I can't help, you know me, I say how it is. I feel sad about these embryos that are left on the side to get the air to them and they're just done. I do feel sad for those.
Yeah. Well, you could always ask your embryologist or your physician if they have like a donation to science. So we have one for like training purposes.
We have funds for that.
So we have one that so if people don't want to discard them, they give them to us. So like if we have a new embryologist come in and they need to train how to thaw or to do a transfer with a real embryo or move an embryo to dish to dish, we would use those. So they are being used for other purposes, and also not being just donated to another couple if they're not comfortable with that.
How small are we talking here? Is it? I heard it was the size of a full stop. So
I don't know what a full stop is. I don't know if it's a
period. You know, you call it period.
Oh, okay. So put a dot on your paper with your pen and then take a third of that. You can't see it with your naked eye.
That's the size of the embryo, you say.
You are joking.
Yes. So you cannot see it with your naked eye. So you would be able to see the dot on your piece of paper, but don't even like try to make the dot. Just do the dot without even attempting to put the ink down.
Oh, you saw me fiddling around with it, didn't you?
Don't try to scribble, just dot, and then that's it. And there you go. So,
you're so clever, Paige. She's like, I know. You know it, girl.
They're very small. You can see them probably under the microscope with your naked eye if it's under the light in the dish and you know what you're looking for. I can see them, but I can see a dot and I know where it's there.
There's a question here. It's just popped up. I've never seen that pop up like that before.
What are your thoughts on embryo glue?
So I've seen some research with embryo glue. I haven't done enough research about it. I don't know if it's FDA regulated yet to actually be used afterwards, but I don't know enough about it to be able to give my thoughts, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
I don't know what embryo glue is.
Mm-hmm. Some people use it after sometimes they use it after ICSI or after hatching and they want to shut the zona again. But I haven't really dug deep into it because we can't use it.
I've asked this question to multiple doctors over the years, and I've heard not one good thing about it.
Not one good thing.
It's a very clever name for a product, basically.
Right.
They've said,
okay. We'll leave that one there.
Yeah.
Paige, I've loved talking to you. I can't believe we've had you for nearly an hour. I'm so sorry. And I'm also going to apologise because me and my time zones, I am a bit of a nightmare. And I thought that Paige was 4 hours behind us and not 5. And she literally rushed home from work to be with us this evening. And it's like her daytime there. So I'm so grateful. Sorry, before I let you go, Tara has said they've been told that she should have glue.
I'd be very interested to hear
why, Tara. Can you tell us why, and maybe what clinic you're at
or where she is?
She's in the UK.
Okay.
Hannah says her current clinic insist on using the glue. I mean, I'm not even a medical professional licensed to say this, but you know me, I can't keep my mouth shut when something pops into my head. I would be really inclined, if that was me, to look at their positive tests, their results of their pregnancies and successful rounds of IVF. I would love to know where your clinics are.
And also to look at the HFEA website, because they have a traffic light system. And that traffic light system has green for things that are really going to be good for you. But then it's to do with
that website again, darling? Sorry. What site is that?
The HFEA.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The authorized board that just basically keep an eye on all the clinics and make sure they're doing all the right thing. But they've got a traffic light system that basically just keeps an eye on all the add-ons, and it looks after patients, and it makes sure that you understand what these tests are, what these add-ons are, what they're going to do for you, and if they're actually going to be, beneficial. And I never want people to doubt their doctor, but it's important to understand that you understand what these things are before you just go, yeah, sure, okay. So just
they also said about an endo scratch. Is that an endo scratch? Is it about scratch? I guess it is. Yeah. And have you girlies got any info on that?
I've heard good things about the endo scratch. I've heard more positive things about the endo scratch than I have about glue.
Yeah. Do you offer anything like that, Paige? Like anything at your clinic?
No, we don't do anything extra whenever we do the transfer. We kind of just do the transfer. We follow ASRM guidelines in the United States, so they don't recommend anything like that as of right now.
I'd be interested to know how much that glue is costing.
Me too. So Tara said they just said to use it, but at no extra cost. Tara, what clinic are you with, lovely? And Hannah, are you at a UK-based clinic? I don't know if we've had a conversation before, so I just thought I would ask. I think we might have had a chat on Instagram. Because Hannah said, I'm going to just pin this one just so you ladies can see it. Her last frozen transfer have failed, which have used glue. Her first transfer at a different clinic didn't use glue and was successful. And she wants to refuse it in your next transfer. This is your cycle, though, Hun, would be my advice. No?
It could be their recommendation, but you are the patient, so you should be able to say thank you for recommendation, but I would prefer to do this.
Amen. Yeah. St Mary's in Manchester. It's included in the cost.
Look into hidden costs.
Mm.
But hey, if it's all paid up and it's included, then you know.
But I think what Hannah's saying is that her first transfer at a different clinic was successful, and she's had 3 failed now using this glue, and she doesn't want to use it anymore, but they're insisting on it. I would definitely, if you've got any embryos frozen, potentially see what your alternative options are if they're not willing to accommodate you, because I don't feel like that's right. Just doesn't sit right with me anyway. But
Yeah,
I'm
same.
again not a medical professional, and I'm not insured or licensed to tell you what to do, but I definitely go and have a look at the HFEA website, as Sarah said. And I hope that's helpful. Paige, I'm going to let you go, hun, because I could talk to you all night, but I can just see the clock ticking. I mean, I'm sure you've got family commitments and stuff to do before you go back and work your magic tomorrow all over again at the lab. So is there anything else you would like to say?
I just wish everybody the best of luck with their transfers or retrievals or any kind of artificial help, or even natural. Like, I sprinkle all the baby dust, and I hope everyone is able to be successful in getting to their journey to be a mommy and daddy.
You have been amazing.
And daddy.
And a mummy and daddy. Yeah. Mummies, daddies.
Can't leave out the
and
daddies. They're always left out, I feel like, and they shouldn't be.
No, definitely not. I agree. We kind of need them to make these babies, don't we?
Just a small part.
Innocent, those beautiful little tadpoles that we were talking about earlier that you spend so much time examining and picking up. But no, so I mean, I'm sure you will agree and link arms with me on this one. You've been amazing, Paige. I've learned so much again. Like, it's so funny. Every week I'm like, am I even like qualified to sit and like host these shows? Because there's so much that I'm learning every week, and I've had 3 cycles of IVF and got an IVF baby asleep in the next room. So I'm just grateful. You've blown my mind, and I've learned so much. I'm sure anyone watching will totally agree. So just thank you for giving up your precious time.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Paige.
Thanks, honey. See you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Oh my God, I love her. I want to keep her. How amazing is she?
Love that woman. My only regret this evening is that, like I said, I look like I'm sat in a shed in the dark. I didn't realize how dark it was getting.
It's getting dark outside. It's getting darker in your room as it's getting darker outside. Yeah, it's fine. I just thought she was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you for finding that incredible woman and bringing her into our lives.
I know. Well, do you know what? Thank you very much. I thought so. As soon as I saw her, I was like, oh my God, I absolutely love her. We have got an amazing show coming up next week. Wow. So anyone who watches the show will know that a couple of weeks ago we had on Kirsten from Straight Up Infertility, and we had Leah, her surrogate, on. And they were absolutely amazing because we covered Kirsten's story a while ago, and then she came on and brought the beautiful Leah with her, and they talked all about their surrogacy journey and their bond as a family, and that was just mind-blowing. But we have next week, we're going to be joined by Leah, who was Kirsten's surrogate, and she's been a surrogate for 2 families, and she's also going to bring on Tess with her. And Tess is the person who matches up the surrogates. So if you've got somebody that needs a surrogate, she is basically Cupid for the families that need a surrogate. She is like the glue in between, since we've been talking about glue tonight. So I just think this is going to be such a lovely topic to cover, and a spin-off from the most incredible story that I'm sure everyone who's watched the last 2 episodes from Kirsten and Leah will just absolutely love to have the opportunity to speak to Tess and find out how they choose surrogates and stuff like that. So I'm really excited for next week. If you're tuning in and you'd like to get involved in the Fertility Women, do pop us a message on our Instagram page or pop us an email, or either me or Zara pop us a DM, because we're always looking for new people to talk to on the show. The whole idea of this show is that we create space for people to come forward, have their say in a nice way. If you can cry, you can do what you like, as long as you're not horrible, we don't care. You are welcome. We have space for you. So please do feel free to pop us a message. But that's all I've got to say now. So is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap it up?
No, other than, like I said, next week I'll turn the lights on.
Wow, love that. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you can't see Sarah next week, she's going to bring a torch with her next week if she doesn't get a ring light by next week. Yeah. Okay, right, I love you all very much, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thanks, Jade.
Bye.